Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wizard's Table. I am your host, Ken Allen.
Hello, hello. I'm your host, Mistress B.
How are you, Mistress B?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really good tonight. I'm really excited for this show tonight. But I wanted to ask you, did you go bowling yesterday?
Yes, I did.
Because I heard you and Kevin talking about going bowling. So did you have,
Yeah,
was it good?
it was great. Gage and I went out, and there's this bowling alley where there's also an arcade. So we played a ton of arcade games. We went bowling. We had a couple beers. It was a blast.
He's a good bowler, eh?
Yeah, he is. He is. But he was off his game, luckily for me. So I beat him once.
All right. So tonight, we have a really awesome guy. His name is Carolina Dean. Carolina Dean is a hoodoo practitioner, root doctor, two-headed doctor. You do all that stuff. I mean,
Yes,
you're just all up in it.
yes.
And before we get started, and maybe you can tell me who said this, I don't know, but I wanted to read this statement in regards to hoodoo. So, a very famous hoodoo practitioner said, in hoodoo, anything that you do is the plan of God. Understand? God has something to do with everything that you do, whether it is good or bad. He's got something to do with it. You get what I'm saying to you? God is a conjurer. And they're basically saying, whatever you do, God is there, pushing it, pushing that power, pushing that energy.
Yes.
Well, how do you feel about that? That statement.
Uh, I'm in alignment with that. I believe that. People say that the Bible is the greatest hoodoo book out there, and Moses was a great conjurer. Some of my ancestors are part Jewish, and they have a great reference for Moses as the freer of the people and a bringer of knowledge. And you know, um, God is what powers the universe. God is flows in everything that we use in hoodoo. I believe in the concept that of the divine spark. Reverend Ike, if you know him he was from South Carolina. He talked
Hmm.
about God in me, and I believe that a little bit of God exists in all living things, including plants and animals, and we are able to do this magic because of that little piece of God in us. That is our godlike power. But we also connect with the spirit of the plants and the animals and the wind and the trees, all that energy. It began with God, and so we're connected to it. It's connected to us.
So, in a way, by working with all of these things, these elements, these plants, and everything around us, we're using the little bit of God in us to appeal to the God in them to get our work done.
Yes, we're all working together.
So
Absolutely.
it's like we're all co-creators, not only of our reality, but of our environment, and other people's environment too, depending on how far we want to take our practice, take our magic,
Yeah.
healing people through conjure work, even curses sometimes. Now, I was watching a video before we signed on here. You were talking about your shaker that you got,
Hmm.
and you were talking about some of your ancestry, Native American ancestry. I have Native American ancestry. My father is roughly, give or take a drop or two, three-fourths Muskogee. So I understand the importance and the sacredness of a shaker, very much so. Um, if you're not comfortable talking about what I'm about to ask next, then we don't have to.
Okay.
But you said in this video, and maybe you can explain it a little bit better, that you were doing some recording and or your equipment or whatever, and you picked up on a growl or a guttural, sound, almost as if it was a non-human entity.
Hmm.
Can you kind of go through that a little bit as to how that happened and what you were
It
doing?
happened actually right here where I am right now. I set my cell phone up across from me, and I was trying to do a video showing people how to go to astro.com and get their birth chart. And um, I filmed it and then I watched it, which is something I don't normally do. I don't like looking at myself on video, but it's doing my videos, my YouTube channel is getting out of my comfort zone. Um, but for some reason, I listened to that one before I posted it, and I got about 30 seconds in, and I started hearing this very low guttural growl, and I was like, "What is that?" And I thought maybe it's. I'm not a scientist, I don't know, but like my dumb ass, I have like a little washing machine right here and a little dryer. I unplugged it, thinking maybe it's the electricity going through the, um, thing, and
Right.
it's creating some kind of interference. And tried it again. I tried it about 5 times, and each time, about 20, 30 seconds in, I got this growl. And I did post the video on my Facebook. I don't remember if I posted it on my YouTube. I don't know if you heard it, the growl, but it made some people very, very uncomfortable, and some people were very concerned for me. Um, sitting there at the time, I didn't sense it. I didn't sense anything. Uh, but I did some meditation on it and some divination, and I come to believe, I don't think I stated it at the time, I believe it was an artificial construct. I don't believe it was a demon, although I do believe things like that exist. And so I did a technique I learned about 20, 25 years ago where I called it into what I call the white room, and I deconstructed the artificial construct, and it was
Okay.
no longer here.
Okay.
I've made several videos since then, and that has not repeated itself.
Okay. So when you say an artificial construct, you mean like an entity that someone created, like a servitor?
Yes. I was told, I've heard them referred to as contacts and artificial elementals, as I heard. And
Yes.
I like to use popular culture to teach things. So if you're not really sure what a artificial construct is, if you've ever seen the 1984 film Supergirl starring Faye Dunaway, there's
I've
a
seen it.
scene. Okay. Oh, I should go get my coffer of shadow. Remind me to show it to you.
Okay.
There's that great scene where she conjures the power of shadow out of her little box, and this invisible creature tears through town and seeks out Supergirl to destroy her, and they have a battle. That's an example in popular culture of an artificial construct. There's also those of you who watch Charmed, when they made Mr. Right, they wrote down little qualities they wanted in a man, and they tossed it in their cauldron with magical pheromones, and they created a man. That's an artificial construct. These fictional concepts are based on reality. In Eastern mysticism, it's called a tulpa. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Tulpa. And even
Tulpa.
X-Files did an episode on a tulpa with the leader of a homeowner association sending a creature out to attack people when they're not following the rules of the homeowner association. So there's 3 examples in pop culture. And so I believe from my meditations and what came to me, I believe that's what happened. Someone sent an artificial construct. And so, like I said, I pulled it into the white room, which is a place in my own mind. It's a world that I create. And I did do a video on the alpha ritual and the white room techniques that I used. And I invited it into the white room with me, and I had 2 choices with that. I could have told it to go back and destroy its master, or deconstruct it, and I chose to deconstruct it and take that. It's like taking apart a car, or
Yeah.
when I was little, Transformers, I was bad about taking them apart to figure out how they worked, and then couldn't get them back together. So it's sort of like taking it apart and letting that energy disperse. And
Hmm.
so I have not had a repeat of that incidents.
And you do believe that somebody specifically sent it towards you, to you?
Yes, yes.
Did you ever find out who?
I have my suspicions, but I didn't go any further with it. I don't really feel the need to go on the attack myself, unless it's really major.
Right. Right.
You can't be. I hate to say this, but there's a lot of competition in the magical community. There's there's a lot of us who are friends, but there's a lot of people that just hate you just for
Oh yeah.
telling secrets or teaching or just I don't want to get too deep into this because I don't want to be that spokesman, but there's an element in the magical community that says, because you're white, you can't do hoodoo or you're not supposed to be doing it. And I try to be very, very respectful of cultural appropriation and things of that nature. I've told the story about as a Gaby, it was Black women who protected me in high school when I was a shy boy. It was Black people that I learned things from, but at the same time, and I do give back to the community and honor the succession of teachers, but I do at the same time feel like this is a part of my Southern culture, and I try to give more than I get. I give away so much for free, and I try to not dilute the system for the greater glory of me, but for the system and the people this came from.
Yeah. There's a question, and I would like to know also from Logan Hellspine. Logan says, "What was it like deconstructing the tulpa?"
So you have to imagine it's a mental thing. I'm in a meditation. In my mind, I go into this room it's a white room. And again, I like to use popular culture to explain things. The white room is kind of like the holodeck off of Star Trek. You can turn it into anything you want to. I invited the entity into the room. It just so happened at that time, sometimes I just let my own subconscious form the room. So it was a room that had a fireplace and a chair. We sat across from each other. I looked at it, and I didn't see so much the monstrosity of it, but I saw the hate behind it. And I just ordered it to be deconstructed. And it was almost like, y'all gonna laugh at me, when Thanos did the snap, and people people just sort of turn into smoke or what particles or whatever. And the thing went up the chimney, into the fireplace, up the chimney, and just out into the universe and became the unmanifest.
Wow.
Yeah. Go ahead. You got anything, B? Go ahead.
No, I just think that's incredible, and I would give anything to be able to have seen that. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I think and I thought, yeah, obviously it's very fantastic. And I think it's ridiculous that somebody would go through that trouble to create one of these things and send them at you. I mean, my God, what in the world could they have been angry at you about to do something like that? That is ridiculous.
I've been doing this, for a very long time, and I've obviously made enemies. And there's been what you call hoodoo wars. I've had people spread rumors about me. I am a deeply spiritual person who also makes dick jokes. Okay, you've seen my Facebook.
Yeah.
What you see is what you get. I can be spiritual and I can make blowjob jokes at the same time. I feel like if God didn't have a sense of humor, I wouldn't have a sense of humor. So I used to make this joke a long time ago. It was back when, I'm not really too much into it now, but it kind of got stale for me. But RuPaul's Drag Race, I made a joke about me being a drag queen called, I think I called myself Miss Honey Barbecue, and it was like, and I would just make these jokes about, I'm going to be in Dallas doing, my rendition of the Rocky Horror Picture, or something, and people would take that little joke right now and turn it into something that it's not. Now, to look at me, I am in no way a drag queen. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. That's not something I'm interested in. That's not something that I do. It's just not my thing, but it's a joke that some people will, okay, I'm going to use that to sort of discredit you. And another thing that happened a very long time ago, because of my name, Carolina Dean, I call myself Carolina Dean because, and there's a story behind that if you want to hear it, but basically my name is Dean and I'm from South Carolina. And some people who don't see me, they read my articles, they go to my website, even though there's pictures of me on there, think I'm a woman. Also, because I'm gay, I sometimes talk about love spells in the terms of attracting a man, because that's my experience. I have no experience attracting a woman. For me, I've done it for clients. So people assume I'm a woman. And so I had someone who at the time was well known in the community approach me and basically came on to me and was like, he said something to the effect of, "Oh, I feel really drawn to you, and I just want to be a part of your life, and this, that, and the other," and that honestly, it made me really uncomfortable. And then I can't remember exactly what he said. He might have made um, reference to my vagina, which doesn't exist, and I was like, whoa, hold up. You do know I'm a man, right? So I kept it to myself because I didn't want to cause any trouble for this person. But at one point, it came out that he was doing this with other women. He was being a predator of other women. And well, I say other women, but I'm not a woman. He was being a predator, and I told my story, and it got turned into I pretend to be a woman online in order to trick straight men, which, so.
Yeah.
And in my youth, when someone attacked me, I felt like I had to attack back. I felt like I needed to address it. People told me, "Oh, ignore it," but I'm like, well, if I ignore it, people are going to believe I'm going around, trying to trick straight men or into, wanting to be with me, which is stupid because I'm not a woman. I can never fulfill that, so it just doesn't make sense to me. And this
Right.
was before the whole catfish thing came along. Before that was even.
Okay.
I'm sure it happened, but the word catfish and this. So I've made enemies out there. I'm sure there's people that hate me. There's people that made fun of me one year because on New Year's I posted a picture of my collard greens and I used canned collard greens, but nobody wanted to ask me why. I'm not in South Carolina anymore. I'm in the Pacific Northwest where there's only a certain amount in the stores, and when I got there, they didn't have fresh. So I got canned, and I'm like, this is such a petty thing to make fun of me about. That I had canned collard greens for New Year's. It's just so dumb.
It's really and I've experienced this too a lot. It's really bad in the magical / occult community. I mean, so many people want to attack you for the smallest, tiniest, minute, most ridiculous shit. It's bad. And the clicks and the egos, absolutely insane. And I know you've had to deal with all that. You've had your battles. Not only as a gay man, I've had my battles, but you've had yours too. So you know what? Whatever. We're still here. We're doing what we want to do.
Yeah, and people hold grudges for the longest times. I had another well-known root worker and author. I was sitting here one night minding on business, and he emailed me out of nowhere and said, I know you're throwing for me, meaning I'm cursing him or I'm throwing that. I know you're throwing at me. I don't know why you would do that. I've never done anything to you. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, well, I had a reading with Miss So-and-so, and she told me that somebody west of me is throwing for me. This person was in New York. So the west of him would be the entire United States. Well, through questioning him, I was like, okay, so this person said that it was someone west of you. How did you narrow it down to me? He goes, well, I asked him, was it Carolina Dean? And she said yes. Well, I mean, if I'm a psychic, if I'm a psychic and someone goes, is it Carolina Dean? I'm going to say, I mean, if I'm not a good psychic, if I'm conning you, I'm going to say, yeah, oh, look, what a great psychic I am. So I just seem to attract these weird scenarios, and finally I was able to just be like, I don't have time for this. If you believe I'm throwing for you, do with that what you will. You can reverse it back to me if you want to, but you're going to be reversing back nothing. So I'm good.
Yeah.
I think that when people achieve a certain amount of peace, it throws a lot of people off because they don't have that in their own life. And so instead of working to attain that peace, they try and work to destroy everybody else's. And I think that it's ridiculous. And especially in magic where, you're supposed to be so aware of your shadow side and of yourself and of your shortcomings, because it will affect your practice. For all of that to still go on is a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah. But it does happen. I mean, I've been accused of things, I've had a few people try to throw some shit at me, but well,
they got theirs.
It didn't work out for them. So, okay. I want to go back to your origins. I want to talk about your origins a little bit, how you got started, because I'm always very interested in about, where you started, how old you were, how you got started, all those kinds of things. Because a lot of times when I'm interviewed by other people, that's a big place they want to go. So I'm
Mhm.
definitely interested in that. So wherever you feel like starting, whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, I grew up in a very, very small town in South Carolina called Great Falls, South Carolina. And someone recently asked me this question: how did I get started in the occult and the metaphysical? And I kind of made a joke and said, that's kind of like asking someone who grew up near the beach, how did you get interested in the water? It was just always around me, and in the culture I grew up in. I remember being very young. I'll be 48 in September, and I remember being very young, waking up in the morning, getting ready for school. They'd turn on the TV, and the old episodes of Bewitched would be on. I love those old shows, Bewitched, I Dream
Yeah,
of Jeannie, and
yeah,
stuff like that. But as a child, thinking that's how magic worked in real life, you just don't know how it works. And so as I got older, I retained my interest in this, and I was just really drawn to the tarot. I loved the James Bond movie Live and Let Die. If you
hmm,
ever, in the 70s and 80s, Ted Turner, TNT, no, not TNT, TBS, 1 week out of the year, they would do a James Bond festival, sort of. They'd show one or two movies a night. And I would always watch Live and Let Die, that had Jane Seymour as the tarot reader. And again, being dumb, thinking, this woman was like 100% accurate with her cards. But as the story goes, she lost her power when she lost her virginity. And I always say, well, I was long on virginity and short on tarot cards. So I started with my grandfather's poker deck. I stole one of his little poker decks and started reading with those based on there was a magazine in the drugstore I saw, and it told how to read playing cards. And so I started reading playing cards, and then I had my aunt Ernestine, who lived at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. She would come get me every summer and take me down to Myrtle Beach. And I took my little cards with me, and she was asking me about them. She goes, "Why don't you have tarot cards?" I was like, "I don't know where to get them." And she's like, "Well, we'll go down to Walden Books," and she bought me my first deck of tarot cards. So then I started learning tarot. And so through, like on the little decks, it would somehow the deck I had, the Rider Waite, it came with some other materials, and it had what is that company? Carl Llewellyn's New Worlds. So I got a
yeah.
copy of that. They said you could write away and get a copy of Llewellyn's New Worlds of Mind and Spirit as a free copy. I wrote for that, and I got their catalog, and it had all these cards in it and books. And I saw the books about Wicca, in which I was interested in that because I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, and um, they weren't they didn't look kind upon the gays. And even when I was young, I knew I was gay. So I didn't feel like there was a place for me in the church. And I sort of my spirit was looking for some type of expression. And I was looking for a way to express my spirituality uh, in a positive way. And I didn't feel like Christianity would do that for me because of the whole gay thing. So I wrote away. I saved up my money and I bought some books on Wicca. Started practicing. Um, and then about this time I went to college for a year, but because I was going through the process of coming out, and just I just felt like I couldn't come out until I had a job in my own place and some independence. So I dropped out of college to and got a job, and I was working at my local Piggly Wiggly. And I started as a bag boy, and then I became a stalker, then a cashier, then a bookkeeper. But working with the public in the South, you really get to know people, and you see the same people every day, and they get to know you. And so I would notice things like, some old man would reach in his pocket to get some change, and he'd have a buckeye in his hand with his change, and I'd go, "Oh, what's that?" And some of the dirty old men would be like, "Well, that'll put lead in your pencil," or something. And and you would just it would start a conversation, and I would write down the things they would tell me. And I was like, well, this is cool and everything. And so I got involved with an organization called WARD, which was Witches Against Religious Discrimination. And the assistant national director actually moved to my town from Alaska, and we met through her bird. Really quickly, I was at my stove one day cooking, and I looked out the window and I saw what I could only describe as an ugly pigeon. It was the ugliest bird I've ever seen. And then the next day, I was going to get my mail, and she was walking down the street, and she noticed my pentagram I happened to be wearing at the time, and struck up a conversation with me. And she said, "Oh, I'm looking for my cockatoo. It flew away, and I know it's in the neighborhood somewhere." And it turned out her cockatoo was the ugly pigeon that I saw. And she asked me if she could camp out in my backyard and try to coax the bird down. I said, sure. I had to go to work. I was working second shift in the mills back then. So I went to work. She got her bird, but then she came back a couple of days later to thank me. I invited her in. We wound up talking for a long time. She got me involved in WARD. I got training to go into the prisons, and we wrote a Wicca course for people who are in prison, and we would go into prisons all over not the United States, all over South Carolina, and teaching this course. And but at the same time, I started feeling like I had gone as far as I could in Wicca. It just didn't it didn't serve me anymore. And more, the hoodoo was popping up. The internet was coming around. Somehow I found Cat Ironwood's website just reading. And I was one of the first. Lucky Mojo.
Yep.
I was one of the first people to sign up for her course back in, I want to say 2003. I was student number 53, and I took the course. I passed the course, and then I feel like, I had collected all this information. Not everything I know about hoodoo came from her course, but I feel like it gave it a little bit more structure.
Sure.
And so when I got my own computer, I just started writing. I think I started writing a blog, and then I wrote a blog about, I called it the Upside Down Doll Spell. And at the time, Denise Alvarado was doing research for one of her books.
I love her.
I still have the email where she reached out to me. I printed it out and kept it. She liked the spell that I posted, so she wanted to keep it in her, print it in one of her books. I think it's the Voodoo spell book or the Voodoo Doll spell book. I forget which one. So that's how we were met. And then she invited me to write for Hoodoo and Conjure Quarterly, her magazine that put out about maybe 4 issues. I helped edit it. I ghost wrote some of those episodes and cleaned up other people's writing. And I became a practitioner. People kept encouraging me. I had a website out there for informational purposes, and people kept encouraging me or approaching me for work, because I felt really, really guilty about taking people's money for doing this, because I had a really good job and it served all my needs. And I thought, well, maybe I could use the money to help my community. So all the sales from my books, I still get residuals from Hoodoo, the Hoodoo Almanac, the magazines. Part of the money goes into an account for my old age, but I give back to my community by donating to my food bank. In the wintertime, I adopt a family to pay their electric bills. I've given to the Black Lives Matter movement. I try to circulate that money and put it back, because even now I have a good job. I make good money. I own my car. I don't have car payments. I have a really great deal on my rent. I'm in a good place in my life. And that's due to my hard work, but also the prosperity work I do for myself. So I'm able to give back to the community. So that's just a real breakdown of what I've gotten involved in and where I came to be.
Fantastic. Fascinating. I think it's great. One of the go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, if anybody's interested in the long story, you asked me for some links and things. My Patreon, I one of the first things I posted on my Patreon, it's in 2 parts. It's called, uh, and I think I have it set to public. If I don't, somebody let me know, and I will go back and change it. I wrote my story in 2 parts. It's called "It Takes a Village to Raise a Root Worker," Part 1 and Part 2. I go into a lot more detail of my history. If I'd have thought about it, I'd have sent it to you before this. And it was actually part of a book I started writing 2 years ago and got sidetracked, and so I sort of shared it on my Patreon.
Now, can you talk about and I love the title of this book, and I think I know what book. I think you know what book I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Can you pull it up?
I have it right
That's
here.
it. Secrets of a Sissy Boy, a gay grimoire of modern magic for men who love men and the hags who worship them. I've had a few hags worship me.
Yeah.
If you'll excuse me, I have a small emergency. I'll be right back. So by all means, if you want to talk about that, that's great.
Okay. There are 3 things I want to clarify about this book that came out after the publication. First of all, the title, Secrets of a Sissy Boy. I like alliteration, and that's why I called it Secrets of a Sissy Boy. But in the gay community, I did not give this a lot of thought. In the gay community, there are men who identify as sissies. These are men who dress up in women's clothing, they put on makeup, and they have relationships with men who are gay, straight, whatever. Again, I didn't put a lot of thought in that. I like the way it sounded, and it goes back to that whole drag queen thing. I really messed up with the name. If I had to rebrand the book or rename the book, I'd probably come up with something else, because a lot of people, there's a Facebook page for the book, and I have a lot of sissies on there, and they were mad at me because they thought they were going to be getting a book about, tips on putting on makeup and how to pass. And I apologize to the sissies of the world. I really do. But if you read the subtitle, it's about magic. It's not about how to be a sissy. I called it Secrets of a Sissy Boy because that was the first word they used against me, sissy, in elementary school when I was a little gaby. And so this book was all about the tools and techniques that I developed in my life to combat the bullies and to navigate in the world that I live in. The second thing is, I found out from one of my female friends on Facebook when I was trying to promote the book. She assumed it was a book all about gay relationships and sex. No, it's not that. I cover the whole gambit of topics in this book. We as gay people, we have all the same needs as straight people. We need money. We need good jobs. We need to protect ourselves from bullies. We need good health. I talk about gay suicides in this book, and rituals to honor gay suicides, and I talk about gay people who are in abusive relationships, how to get out of that, or magical ways to protect yourself and get out of that. At one point in my life, I had a friend who was a prostitute, and I kind of joke around that I was her pimp, because I didn't have a computer. We would get together to work on things, and I would sit at her computer, and she would sit on her bed, and I would be doing the writing while she's talking. And she was on AOL, so she would get the pop-ups from the guys wanting to hook up with her. They often thought they were talking to her, but they were talking to me. And I'd be like, okay, how much you want to charge this guy? He wants to blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say what he wanted to do. Okay. And I would just type it up, and then we'd go back to work, and that's another way how, going back to the people who, I told that story and people said I used to pretend to be a woman. Well, technically I kind of did, but it was for her, not me. That's the whole grain of truth thing. But anyway, yeah, I talk about a lot of different things in this book. And then I have to give credit to Denise Alvarado, who edited the book. She came up with the idea of, in the back of the book, all the prayers that I mentioned in the book are in the back in the appendix. So everything you need is in this book, except for, the candles and the herbs and things of that nature. Oh, going back to the prostitute thing, I'm sorry. there's spells in there for men who are prostitutes, how to get a nice John or a sugar daddy, and so I just cover like a whole gambit of issues and things. It's not just sex.
Right, right. Interesting. I'm definitely going to I'm definitely going to order this book. It sounds fascinating. I don't know of anything that's ever been written like that.
That's the other thing I meant to tell you. Another reason I wanted to write this book was for visibility. There's a lot of books out there for other people. As far as I know, there's not any other book out there written by a gay man for gay men who practice this type of folk magic. And I talk about the importance of role models and labels in this book because, again, I don't know how old your audience is. I'm going to be 48 in September. And, looking back, talking about visibility, who were my role models growing up? Jack Tripper. Y'all remember Jack Tripper?
Yes, yes,
He was a straight man who had to pretend to be gay in order to live with
yes.
two women.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
Three's Company.
yeah. And so I did this because I wanted to be visible to the people out there who were gay and wanted to see someone succeed in life and who has succeeded and who says you're not alone, because I've gotten so many emails from people in very small towns somewhere out there who just like, thank you for writing this book because I didn't know something like this was available for me. I didn't know there was someone else like me, and which just throws me in this age of the internet, that people
Yes. Yes.
don't know about other gay people and issues. And I also talk about the importance of labels. In my lifetime, it's really changed. At one point, people, labeled themselves. We got a lot more labels now than we did before, but people labeled themselves gay, bi, or straight. That's what it was when I was growing up. And now we got LGBTQ and even I
Right.
don't know what they all mean. I don't understand all of it.
I don't know. I don't know all of it
Yeah.
either. I just say LGBT and call it a day.
Yes. And the whole I'm a product of my generation and I'm a product of the area I grew up in. I should also mention I was raised by my grandparents. So the whole gender fluid thing, I don't understand it, but if someone explains it to me, please give me time to adjust to it. I do want to say that to people. Those of you who want to go by they and everything, it took a while for you to come to terms with who you were. So when you come out to someone, you have to give them the gift of that time too to adjust to it. So try not to be angry with people because society is adjusting. At one point it was you know in the black community they had the whole thing of the down low, which is just another word for gay. They didn't want to use
Oh,
that word.
DL, down low.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
didn't want to use that word, and now today they use discreet. That's a key word you see. But I tell people, and then there's people who don't like labels, and I always say, labels are important because they're our first indication that we're not alone, that there's
Hmm.
someone out there like us. And if you go to the grocery store, you need labels, or you don't know if you're going to get corn or peas. So they serve their purpose.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
I think
do.
that's what helps establish a community. And
A
I think that
community.
that's something that's
Hmm.
so important with several of the labels that you have is that, you are in the LGBTQ plus community and you are in the magical community. And that's where you really get that togetherness. Because we as humans were not built to walk alone. We're meant to
Hmm.
be with people.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're very tribal in that way.
Hmm.
Very tribal. So I wanted to ask you about your knowledge and your exposure to the Gulagichi people.
Okay, my knowledge and exposure to them is I watch Gula Gula Island once in a while when I had a young boy I helped raise. I did live in, at one point when the Springs Mills were going overseas, I did move down to Beaufort, South Carolina, which is not far from, the coast down there. But my experience is really not extensive. I read a book. God, what was the name of that book? It was by a lady who who grew up on Salepo Island, and she shared some things. But me personally, I can't speak on a great deal of that.
Okay. So I don't know. For some reason, I just felt like maybe you had been there, had, been around them or learned some things from them or something. I
Yeah.
don't know.
No, I got as far as Beaufort, South Carolina, and I looked for Dr. Buzzard's grave, but
Mhm.
I never made it onto that island down there.
Okay.
But I did read those two. I can't remember. I think it was God something something in the Bolito Man. I can't remember the name of the book. And then there's that other book by, I can't remember his author, called Blue Roots. Those are two really good books to read. But that, like
Okay.
any of my knowledge would be based on the book and not actual experience going to the island or meeting the people.
Well, I actually have a Gula Geechee Bible,
Hmm.
and
I
it's
remember.
written phonetically.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. Now,
Yeah.
it's only the New Testament. I'd love to get the Old, but it's just the New Testament. But it's a beautiful Bible. I love it.
Hmm.
And I thought about doing some workings using the Gula Geechee Bible.
Hmm.
That would be potent. I would think that would be
Hmm.
powerful stuff to do. But I agree with you what you said earlier about the Bible being a very powerful magic book. It's like a grimoire. The Psalms, the Songs of Solomon, and stuff like that. And I've used a lot of Psalms before for many, many different things. Uh, you are Protestant.
Yes, I was raised Southern Baptist.
Okay, so you don't get into working with saints and the rosary or archangels or anything like that.
Now I believe in going to the head man.
Okay, all right, all right, nice, yes.
Don't need no in betweens.
Straight to the source, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what would you say for you? Um, and I'm sure you have different methods, but what is your go-to? I'll put it that way, for divination. Is it cards? Is it bones? Do you throw bones?
Yes. My I was always drawn to the tarot, as I explained before. That's my first love, and that's what I go to. That picture you're showing right there, that is the first deck I ever owned that my Aunt Ernestine bought me at Myrtle Beach, and I think I was 18 when I got that, so that's going on a 30-year-old deck there. I've had it for about 30 years, but I also do, to challenge myself. I didn't, I don't want to say jump on the fad, but I didn't really get into it when it first got popularized in the last couple of years. But I did have the opportunity to take a class. That's one of the benefits of being out there. People do offer you free things. So I did take a class, and apparently, according to the teacher, I had a gift for it. And I love to learn, and I love to learn what my strengths are and my weaknesses are. So I've tried just about every form of divination, and I'm not an expert on every single one of them, but I do great with card-based systems, Lenormand, playing cards, tarot. I have some rune cards from my Wicca days. I have a beautiful set of runes that were carved onto turtle shells. Um,
Nice.
yeah, I love that. Throw the bones, pendulum. Um, that is a bone set I was inspired to create when after I had taken that class and wanted to delve into it more. Um,
There
I'm
was
trying to think.
something.
Go ahead.
There was something on your website that I wanted to ask you a couple more questions about, and it's called geomancy. Can you explain that to me?
So geomancy is a very old form of divination. It started in the Middle East. They would take sticks and poke holes in the sand and count the numbers, and it's sort of like casting lots. And so all the symbols are like two dot, like 2 2 1 1, and that means something in 2 2 2 2. So that's a populace, and it's sort of like astrology. It's divination by the earth, and it was the major form of divination at the time up until sort of astrology came along and sort of overtook it. Um, um, it it is somewhat, it's easy and it's complicated as you want it to be. So you can go as far with it as you want to.
Okay. Yeah, because I'd never heard about that before, and it really
Mhm.
piqued my interest. So
Mhm.
thank you.
And
You're welcome.
I'm sure you, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would just assume that you practice bibliomancy as well.
Oh, yes, yes. I do that a lot. I do that with different books. I do that with the dictionary,
So
and
do
I
I.
also, right. I was actually I first learned to do it with the dictionary. And there's a story if you want to hear it. Um, Back when I was identifying as Wiccan, that was how I was taught to find your witch name. So I took the largest dictionary I could find, opened it at random, and put my finger down on a word, and I got the word promiscuous, and that was going to be my witch name, right? So I got to thinking about it in hindsight. At the time, I was a shy, introverted boy in a small town in the South, and this was before the internet. You had to know someone to know how to meet men and other things. And so when I started referring to myself as promiscuous in my rituals, um, the men followed. So that's uh, you it's all about the mind and how you think of yourself. And so, not that I came a huge slut, that actually happened later. But it did open up a world for me. And so, that's the name that I needed at the time. Now, if I had to tell someone what that name was, promiscuous sounds a lot like Prometheus. So, I just kind of
Right.
changed it a little bit to be more respectable.
Sure. Okay.
So that's the way bibliomancy works. It's kind of
Yeah.
right?
You open up a book well, with the dictionary, what I do is I think of a question and I open up the um, dictionary at random and I put my hand down without looking at it. And I don't just read the word that my finger lands on. I read the definition, and I read the word itself. And somewhere in that um, entry, you will get your answer. You can do the same thing with the Bible. So if I open up my Bible, I put it down on the verse, I'll read the verse, but I'll also sort of read the whole chapter if it's not one of those that goes on and on and on, so that you sort of feel out there's usually a theme of what's going on in the story, and you relate it to your question in some way, and that becomes your answer.
That's so cool, and that's such a really cool skill to pass on to people that still might be in the broom closet because there's so much magic that you can do with everyday objects. You spoke
Hmm.
earlier about learning to read playing cards, and I think bibliomancy in this instance would be great because you could literally do it in a church and
Yes,
nobody would be the wiser.
yes. And if you really want to go further, you can tailor the book you use to the question. So let's say if you're asking about love, you might want to use a book of love poems. If you're asking about, I don't know, money, use an accounting book, and just see what you get. So if you have any book in your house, you can use that for anything, really.
I like that. I like that. I mean, I've used the dictionary, I've used the Bible, but I never thought about, like you said, you could use love poetry, poetry in general, whatever. Uh, yeah, cool. And it's so simple to do for
Hmm.
people to do. It's not like this heavy system that you have to learn and memorize this and understand and interpret that. I mean, I'm sure that to a degree there's a personal interpretation if you want to, go
Hmm.
that deep into it. But yeah, bibliomancy, it's easy.
Yeah.
Think of a question, think of something, just boop,
And I
there
would
you are.
also caution people, if you don't understand the word the first time, don't keep going. Don't keep
Right,
going. Just,
right.
you know, sit down, meditate on the definition or the word or the passage. I find that it helps if I'm huge on journaling. So I would caution people to like write the word in their journal, write the definition or write the verse and just read it over, and the answer will come to you. But if it's not like, should I marry Bob? You're not going to open up the Bible and see, yes, Dean should marry Bob. There's going to be a theme. There's going to be and you may have to think about it a little bit. So don't think the answer is going to be, hit you and be definite right away.
Yeah.
I think that's true with any sort of divination, though. I find a lot that, especially when I'm doing tarot readings for myself, I like to go through and I have a whole journal set up where I write my spread and I go through and I write down the keywords about each card and then I just sit with it for a little bit. And it's usually right after I'm done and I look over all the meanings and I'm like, okay, well, it might mean this. And after I sit with it, it's just like, bam, okay, now I understand what's going on.
Yes.
So I would like to talk to you a little bit about, and if you're okay with divulging some of that, because I know you got a lot on your website, and you know, you wrote books and you've helped with this and you've done that. So obviously you're putting information out. What would you recommend for someone, just something simple that, you know, they could do without much experience in folk magic of this nature? If someone has been crossed, what would you recommend for somebody, a novice, to uncross themselves?
Well, something that they hopefully are already doing every day anyway, and that's take a bath. But you do it, everything's about intent. So every act can become a ritual act. You know, you can put some salt in your bath. There's all kinds of bath salts out there. I have some lavender salts from Walgreens, and it's not so much the physical act, but the doing it with the intent. I'm going to take this water and I'm going to sit in the tub and I'm going to pour it over my head and I'm going to cleanse myself, you know, and I'm going to pray. And if you don't know what to say, just say, you know, God, cleanse me of this evil. That's a prayer. You know, you don't have to say this long Bible verse and everything. Just get to the core of what it is. You know, you can do something as simple as take incense and smoke yourself with incense. I've done things where, like, as a kitchen witch washing dishes, I imagine this plate is my head and I'm going to wash it clean. That's sympathetic magic. And I'm going to rinse this plate off and my head is clean. This fork is my left leg and I'm going to wash it. This knife is my right leg. And when I'm done with those dishes, I've cleansed myself and I pull that drain and all of it washes away to the unmanifest.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
You know,
so it's all about your intent.
Yes.
And your understanding of using what you have around you. Go outside to a windy place. You know, where I live right here, there's a place called Deception Pass Bridge. It's sort of a rite of passage to walk across it. And unfortunately, there has been some suicides. And one of the most cleansing things I can do is go up there and walk to the center of that bridge and just hold my hands out and let that wind whip across me. Now, unfortunately, the first time I did it, I had really long hair down, and that wind got me right in the face like a whip. But you know, go to a windy place, go outside, sit under a tree, feel the sun on your skin. Being from South Carolina and living in Washington, that's something I miss. The sun here does not burn my skin. I'm the whitest I've ever been. But I remember, you know, back home, I would cut my own grass. Go outside, cut your grass, sweat it out. I don't need to go to a sweat lodge. Cut your grass in 90, 100-degree weather. By the time you're done, you're going to sweat out all that nastiness. Take a nice clean shower. You're cleansed, and your skin's going to feel so good. You know.
I got the advice recently to go stand outside, put your feet in some running water, and blow some bubbles. Just let everything release to the universe, and when that bubble pops, it's done for.
Yeah, especially that running water. Running water is powerful stuff. Okay, so I'm not going to go into great detail, but I had a situation one time where this lady had a demonic attachment, and I used a hoodoo approach. Anyway, I got the spirit off of her, and I got the spirit into a candle and into a brown bag. And I did have her take this brown bag and this candle and throw it into running water. Now, I don't like doing that a lot because too much of that's going to pollute. But hey, it was bad.
The situation called for it.
The situation called for it. It was bad. It had to go. And, you know, I thought about, well, you know, take it to a crossroads, whatever. It's like, no, she doesn't know much about this kind of stuff. I'll just have her take it to the river. Actually, she threw it off of a bridge, and the water wasn't going under the bridge. So it was like a crossroads anyway.
Yeah.
So when you discard of tricks, do you have a preference? Crossroads, bury it in the West, toss in the water?
Well, it depends on what it is. Like if it's a portion of my bath water, I'll toss it over my left shoulder towards the west. Sometimes I'll go out on my patio and turn my back and do it that way towards the west. There used to be a tree right outside my back door, but where they remodeled a couple years ago, and they took the tree away. It was a danger with all the wind, but I had some things buried in my backyard that I was really worried they would dig up. But as far as I know, that I had some jars and bottles and things. Uh, Things that you don't mind keeping around, I bury in the backyard, like an old spell or something. Things that I don't want around, I take it away from myself. So I might bury it in the woods or a graveyard. If I go out of my apartment down the hill and around the bend, which is a nice little walk, there's a crossroads right down here. I'll leave some things at the crossroads. So again, it depends on what it is I'm getting rid of and what it was used for.
Sure.
Sometimes I've gone to the beach is right down the street from me too. Sometimes I've gone to the beach when the tide was going out and thrown things in the water and let it go out to sea.
Okay. Yeah. So I agree with that. Yeah, sure. It depends on the situation, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, that's common sense in root work. Okay.
I think that there's so much intuition that goes along with root work and just magic in general, and it's beautiful to see. I think, I mean, I'm not super experienced, but I've definitely done a few spells, and you can kind of get a feel for what you should do with it based on how you feel about it. You know, if it's something positive and something that you think has been working and you're happy with, of course, you know, it's okay to keep it around. I have a little collection that's just lined up kind of behind my shed, or if there's something that I want to get rid of. I'm not near a crossroads that I've found and don't want to just go adventure by myself and get myself lost, but I'll burn a lot of stuff just to get it out. And I love that it's so intuitive. You just feel out what you need to do, and that's especially in root work, because there's all of these super simple ingredients that you can use, and anything that you need, you'll find it.
And see, a lot of people don't understand that in hoodoo, at least, the disposing of spell remains is part of the spell.
Yes.
So your spell isn't over till you dispose of the remains.
That's right.
Know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like an open and a close.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
especially something like candle wax, because candle wax absorbs energy, and you're just going to take that candle and like dump it into your trash or something, and that's your love spell. You're putting your, I can understand maybe if it's like trying to get rid of somebody, but that's your love spell.
Yeah. And people do that.
Yeah.
They'll do a love spell with a pink or a white candle or whatever, and I'm done with it, and they'll put it in their garbage, like you said.
Yeah.
Oh, those poor bastards. Anyway. So have you ever practiced trolldom? Have you ever fooled around with trolldom?
No, don't know nothing about it.
Oh,
I know there's
okay.
that book out there. And I've seen a couple of things here and there, but I personally haven't done anything with that.
Can you explain what that is a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's real simple. Basically, trolldom is the Northern European equivalent to hoodoo.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. I do it. I love it. I think it's great. I think you would see a lot of similarities there, especially with the Christian influence, not only in hoodoo, but also in trolldom. So I know the book you're talking about. Isn't that by Johannes something? Yeah.
I'm terrible with names, but yeah.
It's actually a good book. It really is. I have that book. Actually, I have it. Letting somebody borrow it, but I have that book. It's a good book. Trolldom is a unique system. I think it's great, but I like hoodoo better.
Yeah.
So. Yes. So the White Room. I wanted to ask you about the White Room. Now, is this something that you've constructed on the astral plane?
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, that's the book we were talking about. I've heard, sometimes I go read the Lucky Mojo boards and stuff, and I think it might have its own section, or I listen to their show on Sundays, or sometimes when I'm through the week when I'm exercising, I've heard some talk of it, but I haven't read the book.
I think you'd like it.
I'll check it out at some time. I got a huge to read list.
I think this is the other book that you guys were talking about earlier.
Yes, that's the book. It has
Yeah.
a lot of good stuff in there.
Awesome.
So the White Room,
hmm
you create that on the astral plane?
This is something that was taught to me probably about 20, 30 years ago by a man who identified as a magician, a ceremonial magician. And
Okay.
it's I did a video on it on my YouTube channel if anyone wants to go, but it's usually preceded by what he called and I called the Alpha ritual. And it's called Alpha because it's a ritual that takes you to a place where your mind and body are completely relaxed. And it also refers to alpha brain waves, which your mind generates when your mind and body are completely relaxed. And then you sort of go into a meditation, and on the astral plane you go to the White Room is what he called it, and that's just what I called it. And like I said, it's sort of like the holodeck on Star Trek. You can create it to be whatever you want it to be, or in my case sometimes I just let my subconscious create the room for me. And there's so many things you can do in the White Room. I've sat down with my spirit guide and had a conversation. I've had you know, everyday relationships. Let's say you're having a difficult time with your boss, but you don't feel like you can talk to them. Go into the White Room, ask to speak to your boss's spirit. Your boss, the spirit will appear. You'll have a conversation with that person. They will talk back. You can work things out. I mean, there's just so many things you could do in that White Room. And then actually years later, and I recently been listening to this on YouTube, looking for things to listen to when I'm working or exercising, is Dr. Evelyn Pagalini. Now she's passed away now, but she was a frequent guest on Art Bell, Coast to Coast, and they do
Okay.
have some shows up on YouTube. She talks about something similar to the White Room and going into this room and meeting your spirit guides and things. But there's just so many things you can do in this White Room. You can find the source of an attack. You can pull in negative energy and, like I said, choose to deconstruct it. You can cast a spell in the White Room, and it would be just like as if you were doing it in the material rather than in the immaterial, because our minds have difficulty distinguishing our thoughts from reality. Something that you do. If I sit here and think about something sour, like sucking on a lemon pop, my eye's gonna go like this. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's nasty. Or think
Yeah.
about the last nasty food you ate, or a piece of chocolate cake, and you can taste it on your tongue. I
Yeah.
could taste a Mountain Dew right now. So just like you can do that, you can summon up these feelings and control your body. You can control the material world around you. So if I call money to me, like if I go in the White Room and I hold up a little cartoon bag with a dollar sign on it and I say, money, come to me. And I just imagine, a flow of money just pouring into that bag and filling it up. And then I take that bag and I hold it to myself. In the material world, money is going to come to me. So it sort of amplifies the powers of your mind, because our thoughts are the building blocks of the universe.
Mhm.
What we create with our mind, what we dwell on inwardly, we manifest outwardly. And the White Room is like a amplifier of that.
Sort of like a spiritual soapbox.
Yes. And you just have to be able to train your mind to go into that place in a sense of peace, because a lot of people just aren't comfortable with their own thoughts. They're not comfortable not having the TV on, they're not comfortable with silence. I'm guilty of it sometimes myself. I often have the TV on for noise, but I can go into that silent place, go into the White Room, and just do all kinds of things.
Yeah. I have to sleep with the TV on. So
For me, it's a fan.
is it a fan?
Yeah.
So yeah, I should have known that the concept of the White Room was had its origins in ceremonial magic, because I could totally see that. And your whole what you talked about when you deconstructing the tulpa or the servitor,
Mm-hmm.
that reminds me so much of what I do as a chaos magician. I don't know if you know anything about chaos magic or not.
A little, yeah.
I mean, you may or may not like it, whatever. But
I like aspects of it. Yeah.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
But that reminds me, because in chaos magic, there's a lot of reverse engineering
Hmm.
traditions, reverse engineering magic, and then putting it together. But and then sometimes there are some sillier aspects, but a very professional, very serious chaos magician holds merit, believe
Hmm.
me. So, man,
Can you give us an example of that, Ken? Of the way that you deconstruct things in chaos magic?
no, because that's my business. I'm just kidding. No, that's my business. Um, okay, so sure. Let's take the Goetia, for example. Okay. The Lesser Key of Solomon, all those long ass, insane, ridiculous ceremonies where you have to cleanse yourself for like uh, 12 days, anywhere from 3 to 12 days to 12 months, sometimes seriously a year, before you can conjure a goetic spirit, a demon. So first of all, I get rid of all that crap. All right. I'm not cleansing and abstaining from food for 3 days.
And
I'm not
sex.
going to do it. And that too. Thank you. And, not going to do it. Bathing like 3 times a day for 3 days and not eating. And if you do eat, it's only water and little niblets of fruit or maybe even bread. No, whatever. I'm not doing that. So I get rid of that. That's gone. Done. Not going to do it. Then you get into the reading of certain passages out of the Bible when you take a bath, like cleanse me and what is it, hyssop?
Hyacinth. Hyssop, sorry.
Yeah, cleanse me in hyssop, oh Lord, make me whiter, pure and whiter than snow, or whatever. Not going to do that either. I put some salt in there, take a bath, whatever. I'm fine. It's all about this, Basically, what I do is I strip away what I feel is not necessary. I go to the core of the magic itself, and that's what I practice.
Okay, got it.
All right. To me, it's that simple. And to most chaos magicians, it is that simple. I get rid of all the baggage, all the unnecessary baggage, all the pomp and circumstance, and we make shit happen. Okay.
I
It
really
is somewhat freeing.
Very freeing. Very
Yeah.
freeing.
And I think that it makes magic a little more accessible because I personally would die if I had to fast for 3 days.
Well, and there's some rituals where you have to fast for 8, 9 days, Now I have fasted before for 3 days, but that was for a Native American ceremony. That was totally different situation. But I did fast. The first day it was rough. The second day, the third day, not a problem. But once I got that chicken and started eating that chicken, I literally bit my tongue. I was so hungry when I was eating that chicken. KFC. And I remember it was KFC. I was eating it at a little table in the house. I ate the hell out of that chicken. So, yeah, it's about deconstructing and reconstructing it how you want it to be and stripping it of all the unnecessary pomp and circumstance and, just what's not necessary. Get to the core of it. The core.
Absolutely.
The core.
I like that.
Yeah, you would love it.
Can I give an example of one thing I learned from a chaos magician?
Yeah.
To create a sigil, and for those of you who don't know, a sigil is basically a magic symbol of something you want. I was taught one way is to get yourself a piece of string and just close your eyes and think about what it is you want, and then hold the string out so that it hangs down. Close your eyes and just lower the string and let go of it, and then you look at how the string laid down from sort of a bird's eye view, and whatever the scribble is, that's your sigil.
I've never heard of that one.
I love that.
Hold on, I got to write this down for real.
You can go to my YouTube page, and there's a video called 5 Ways to Receive a Sigil, and I explain that there.
Okay, I'm still going to write it down though.
And there's his YouTube page for everybody that wants it.
Yeah.
String sigil, right?
Yes.
I love that.
I love that. Yeah.
There's so many different ways to create a sigil. I actually just bought a book on it, and so much of it is like,
wow,
confusing. And then you're just left with this symbol, and you're like, okay, now what? So I think that That makes it so much easier. That's
So
beautiful.
once you do the string, you drop it like you said.
Mhm.
You can look at it. So you could take a piece of paper and you could draw the shape of that on
Yes.
the way it landed. You could draw that,
Yeah.
and then you
Yes.
could take it from that paper and work with it and empower and charge that sigil.
Yes.
That's awesome, dude. I mean, I know many different techniques on how to create sigils,
Mhm.
but never heard that one.
An old witch taught me that.
Yeah,
Love that.
Yeah.
that's
There's
fantastic.
so many different things that you could add to that. I mean, you could dip the string in paint. You could dip the string
Yes.
in oil. You could,
I was thinking Van oil,
Mhm.
dip
Yeah.
that string in some Van oil, charge it up, and boop, let it go. But
Now,
yes,
you can also take that string and tie it around your wrist and wear it like a bracelet, because now that string has the energy of the sigil that you created with it, and
yeah.
that's your talisman
What
or
a good
amulet.
way to incorporate it into everyday life.
that is
Yeah.
so unique. So
Or
unique.
tie it around your ankle if you don't want anybody to say, "What's that for?"
None of your damn business.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna go out and buy me some string, y'all. A lot of it. But yeah, I'm sure you could do that with like a chain, jewelry,
Mhm.
and create a sigil and then charge that, and then boom, you got your
Mhm.
necklace. And wow, I like
Thank
that,
you.
Carolina. Thank you. Yeah, for
You're
real,
welcome.
for real.
You're
Dope.
welcome. I got so much stuff up here, and I'm slowly starting to. The older I get, I'm like, well, I'm not passing this on to anybody. I need to like put it up there.
Yes, let it all out. Write it
Right.
down. Get it out there. Write another book.
Yeah.
I have one in mind. Like I said, I started it about 2 years ago, and that's when I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, and the doctor put me on keto, and I had to start changing my habits. And then that's another reason why I retired from active practice, because I would get up in the morning early and answer emails from my clients, get ready, go to work in the office 8 hours a day, come home, have something quick to eat, which is unhealthy. And then I would work the rest of the night, fixing mojo bags and burning candles and doing readings. And it got to be too much. I had to give up something. And I like my day job.
Mhm.
I'm not a very social person, so I kind of feel like this may sound mean of me, but I get my fill of people at work. So when I come home, I don't feel like I need to go out to bars or anything. So I chose to give up I chose to retire as a root worker, but it did free up me so much more time to get the rest and relaxation I need to learn how to do keto, but also to teach. So I'm sort of in the role of a teacher now, which is why I created the YouTube channel. And that was also a opportunity for me to get out of my comfort zone, because I didn't like people to see how I look. I didn't like this right here, but I'm like, this is me. This is what I look like. The hell with y'all if y'all don't like it. And it was a challenge for me because I don't know about the technical stuff of editing the videos and all that. And also, I consider myself a writer. So for me to sit in front of the camera and just start talking, I can't go back and edit myself or anything. So it was a challenge. So sometimes I'll make an outline in my head. Sometimes you'll see me, I'll hold up a piece of paper and say, I made myself an outline so I don't go off in these tributaries and stuff. And it's been really fun. I've got a lot of feedback from people on my videos. It's just what you see is what you get,
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely understand that aspect of a challenge. That's been something that with this podcast has been not necessarily difficult, but definitely a hurdle to jump over, is all
Yes.
the technology and having to look at yourself. Like I, for the first few episodes, wouldn't listen back to them because I hate the sound of my own voice. So I
Yes.
totally understand.
That's I told you I don't watch my videos before I post them. So it's like, I hope this works. I hope there's no demon on this one. Let's see.
I mean, I don't really have a problem watching myself, and I don't have a problem hearing my voice because, I
Mhm.
doing radio so much in the 90s, I always heard my voice. I'm used to that. I mean, yeah, when you get older, you don't really like to look at yourself in the mirror that much, I guess.
But Sandy makes a good point. She says there's nothing wrong with the way you look. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy.
Absolutely, I agree with that. We are our own worst
Yes.
enemy. We are.
I'm learning to like the shell,
Yeah, we are our own worst enemy. And it's like I said on another podcast where I was being interviewed, we are our own worst enemy, because when I'm done with a podcast, and you, Mistress B, you maybe you feel the same way. I don't know. you're done with the podcast and it was a good podcast and you're like, oh man, I should have said this or I should have asked that, but whatever. It is what it is. I love our podcast. I love the Wizard's Table. I think we're doing a damn good job. And
I think so.
we do have a few haters out there, a few, but whatever. Yeah, exactly.
I do want to say, Mistress B, you did like a really great job with those little graphics you showed me before and put up. I was really impressed with that. So thank you for creating those for the show and to help put my links and things out there.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I have a lot of
You're
fun
welcome.
doing it. So
You're welcome.
Yeah, she's really good. She handles most of the tech side. I'm still learning from her. She's got to come to my house soon so we can go over some more tech stuff so I can write some stuff down in detail so I can get a little more independent.
I got you covered. And thank you, Sandy. I appreciate
Yes.
it.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. Carolina, what has been your experience, if any, and have you ever had to perform any type of exorcism?
Well, of course, as a Wiccan, you would exercise your elements and cleanse them.
Sure. Yeah.
And I guess, doing house cleansings is a form of exorcism. But
It is a
as
form.
far as if you're talking about pulling a demon out of another human being, no.
Okay.
I have had some work with long distance called, I don't know if y'all know, called some women have that, and this is a little bit of a dirty word in some crowds, that Jezebel spirit. Some women
Yes.
have that. Some women have that Jezebel spirit
Mhm.
that they exist just to tempt men, to break up marriages, to come between a man and his wife. And I have had to deal a couple of times with the Jezebel spirit in my root work practice, and that's sort of through a long distance sort of way. And you do that through spells and rituals is one way, prayer, things of that nature.
So, with regards to the Jezebel, you have had to sort of deal with a spirit entity.
Yes.
Okay. But you
Well,
handled it.
yes. Also, as a Wiccan, there's not a lot of call for it in hoodoo, not in my experience.
Mhm.
Hands-on healing, I do have that gift. I did it more as a Wiccan. I've treated people. I'm not saying I cured people. I'm not a miracle man here, but like people who had cancer. I've done long distance work for people who are dying in order to help ease the pain of death. I've worked on myself naturally. I need to work on obesity, I guess. Make this go away. But hands-on healing is a form of exorcism because you're pulling that spirit of sickness and dis-ease out of a person.
Dis-ease. That's
Pain,
right. That's
you
right.
know.
Absolutely. Well, okay. Now, when you're doing these healings and you're pulling this out of those people, do you do you go by any astrological or moon phases or anything like that, or do you just do it when it needs to be done?
It depends on the severity of the person. If someone's coming to you and you're in pain, you're like, "Oh, come back when the moon's wane." And no, it's in the moment.
Mhm.
If you can, my philosophy on things are if you can wait for the right astrological sort of conditions, wait. But if you can't, now is the moment of power. You know, um, and actually, how do I say this? I'm having trouble saying this. If the need is great, the power to make it somehow increases your power, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yes.
Right. Okay. I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
explaining that correctly.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
The need kind of trumps the circumstances.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Nice.
So I
Yeah.
know that in root work, there's all sorts of items that you could use, whether they be herbs, whether they be mojo bags or dolls or anything. What would you say your favorite thing to work with is and why?
I do a lot of candle magic, but I love working with dolls. Even when I was little, when I didn't know, and I think it's mainly because of the impression that Hollywood gives us is like, oh, I have a doll here. I'm going to stick a pin in it. And the person's like,
Yeah.
oh, they feel it right away.
Right.
And I'm going to say, a lot of people say it doesn't work like that. But honestly, in some cases, it does.
Yeah.
I could tell y'all a story. I had a coworker a couple years ago, just was a complete idiot and a moron. He was the Trump of our office, okay? And I could not stand him. I tried to work with him. And finally, I made a doll of him. I love this new age we live in where everybody has Facebook pages and they're vain and you can get their pictures. So I
Yeah.
got his picture and I made a little doll and I was cutting the face out of the doll and I accidentally cut the ear off. And I shit you not, that man got drunk that same weekend and fell down his stairs and cut off his ear.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
You know,
I believe that 100%.
so if you want to,
100%.
if you're new and you really want to work some magic, if you can get a doll of someone and get their, I cannot recommend highly enough, get the person's picture and somehow paste it to the doll. That is a powerful little piece of magic there. It's psychological in a lot of ways. To actually see the person's face and do the spells with them, or at least for me, it works that way. Now, like I said, it's not always like instantaneous, but dolls are very, very powerful, and they're often, I think, overlooked. People seem to think of hoodoo as nothing but candles,
Right. Right.
you know. And not everybody can work with candles for whatever reason. Maybe you rent a room or have a roommate or what have you. You have to have other ways of getting the job done.
So often, voodoo dolls are really considered like evil. Can you do positive work with them as well?
Oh yes, of course. I have a doll of myself that I keep, and honestly, don't laugh at me. I love magic and popular culture, and I remember the very first, I believe it's the very first movie, Child's Play. Remember his teacher was a voodoo practitioner, and his teacher taught him to make a doll of himself and to keep it in a safe place. And if you kept that doll safe and happy, you would be safe and happy. And in the movie, of course, he finds his teacher's doll and uses it against him, but that influenced me. And then I think I read in, I'm terrible. Is it the Conjure Woman's book? I can't remember the name of it. She talks about how you should make a little doll of yourself and, put it in a safe place and surround it with little things that make it happy, So I have this box with my doll in it and a bunch of dildos and some cash and some little books to read, I should throw another little doll in there with it, maybe a little Ken doll.
I love that.
And they make them anatomically correct, But anyway, and then I use that doll to cleanse myself. Sometimes I'll take that doll out, and in Washington State, it rains here 364 days a year. But on that one sunny day a year, I'll take that little doll out of its box and pry them off that dildo and put them in the window where it's sunny and nice and cleanse it, and it has an effect on me,
Yeah, I love that. I'm from Washington State, so I remember that one good sunny day.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, the dildos.
Hey, well, he's got to keep him happy.
Hey, whatever works, I just think it's great. So.
I believe in the power of positive sex, and that's something else I talked about in this book.
Brings a whole new meaning to good vibrations.
Yes.
Good vibrations. Oh, Lord have mercy. So, there was a question I had way earlier, and I don't know if I wrote it down or not, but I am interested in the what is that? Oh, is that a car?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I got my window cracked open. Should I close it?
No, I think it'll be all right.
I gotta enjoy this one day of sunshine.
No. What I wanted to ask you was the video you did where I think you were in South Carolina because it was pretty darn sunny. I don't think you were in Washington State, and I think you were sitting on your porch or something, and you were you were calling somebody out. I'm not going to mention names or titles, but you were calling somebody out because they had plagiarized your book.
No,
Like
that
this.
was here. That was on my back patio.
Oh, was it there?
Yes, yes, it was
Oh,
here.
okay. Okay. Anyway, you had called them out. Good for
Mhm.
you. But you had talked about Sun Tea.
Mhm.
Could you explain? Because I can tell Mistress B is very interested in the
Oh,
Sun
um,
Tea method and the magic and all that, and
yeah.
drinking it, the
Um,
healing properties of it.
well, Sun Tea. Well, I haven't had any in about 2 years because, like I said, my doctor took me off of, told me to stop drinking sweet tea because sugar is supposed to be like really, really bad for you, but it feels so damn good. Um, So Sun tea is just really you. I take a big plastic jug and like you go into Walmart and you see those big plastic jugs that's got like the cheese crisp in it. I like those because they have that plastic. It just sort of pops right onto it on the top. And so I clean that out. You fill that up with water and you take about 8 or 9 tea bags. You get the little strings and you tie them together so they're all stuck together. And I would fill that jug full of water and I put the tea bags in that and I would put the tip of the string over the lip of the jug and then put that lid on it so it stays in place. And I put it out on my back patio. On that one day, it doesn't rain a year out in the sun. In the south, in the sunny places, it's a lot better. And so the heat from the sun sort of heats up that water and it draws that tea out of the tea bags. And you can do this at you're drawing on solar energy, but
That's right.
the other
That's right.
the other planets are up there. Just because you can't see them don't mean they're not there. Again, it goes to your intent. So let's say if you want to make a love tea, you can maybe do it on a Friday because that's associated with Venus. And if you're have a ephemeris and know where Venus is or whatever, put it out there with your intent. But I usually put it out there early in the morning, and I would leave it there till about sundown, and then bring it in the house, and I would take discard the tea bags, and I forgot about the sugar. Um, so when you put in your water in the thing, I usually fill it up halfway with hot water, put my sugar in, stir it, then fill it the rest of the way with cold water. Sorry, it's been 2 years since I've done that. But anyway, bring it in, put it in the refrigerator and let it chill and then drink it. But you have your solar infused tea there. And you can do this with smaller jars if you want to. You remember when mayonnaise would come in glass jars? I remember
I
doing
do.
it with the
I
mayonnaise
do.
glass jars because you can
Yeah.
screw that lid on and hold it, and you can do it with any herbal tea that you have and draw in more solar energy. Or if you wanted to have, a Mars-based herb to give your sexual drive a boost or what have you. So there's a lot of applications you
Well,
can do with that.
I know that my husband, who practices magic, he's made the tea like that before using
Mm-hmm.
the energies of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about taking a quartz crystal, obviously a clean one that's been cleansed, not just, from bacteria, but spiritual bacteria, and
Mm-hmm.
putting that inside the tea pitcher and,
Mm-hmm.
doing what you said and having all that going in there with the quartz
Yeah.
crystal and the solar energy and drinking that for healing purposes. Now, I can drink tea with or without sugar. I honestly can, but I got to have some lemon in my tea.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm in
Tea with no
Florida.
sugar is a sin. That's a
I'm
sin. You're gonna burn in hell for that.
maybe so, and I'll admit it. I'm in Florida, but I can
Yeah.
drink it with or without tea. But I mean, with or without sugar. But I do prefer a little sugar, and I like lemon too. So yeah. But I thought about putting the quartz in there too. So
Yeah.
That opens up a possibility for so many things because you could put rose petals in there. You could make it with moon water if you really wanted like a really holistic, like all the energies in one tea kind of thing.
Mhm.
There's so much that you could do with that. And it's really easy to incorporate into your day to day because all you got to do is set a jar out and then drink your tea for the rest of the week and you're good to go.
yeah, yeah, and not only that, but just take that a glass jar and put some water in it. Maybe pray over the water. Take that quartz crystal, put it in there, pray over that, sit it outside where on a full moon and get that lunar energy, not just into the water, but also into that crystal. And yeah, so much you could do with that lunar energy. I work a lot with solar energy. The right now we've had sun for like several days in a row here in Florida. So I set my crystals out, and sometimes I'm telling you, they get so hot you can hardly touch them.
Mhm.
They are bursting with
I
Apollo.
also do candles. I put candles outside because candles are very absorbent of energy. So you can put a candle out during a full moon, a new moon, or waxy moon, and I'll like draw the symbol on the candles and put it up for later. So like if I need a waxing moon candle, but the moon is waning right now, I got that candle with that energy stored into it. And a couple of years ago, we had an eclipse here in Washington.
Mhm.
It looked like I don't even can't even remember how it just looked weird. I put a bunch of beeswax candles out to absorb that eclipse energy, and I still have some of them, and I pull them out when I want some extra oomph to a spell, you know.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
candles are very absorbent. You can put them out during certain days or times of day to pull in that energy for use later.
So I love dressing candles, and
Hmm.
I get you recognize these little candles, right? You can get
Yes.
them. I think it's at Dollar General or whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
I love
I have
using
one like
these.
that too.
Oh, do you have one too?
Just a little chakra candle. I got them at
Okay.
Five Below.
Okay, I've heard of that place. But Dollar General, actually, a lot of my candles, and people think I'm crazy, but a lot of my candles that I buy come from Dollar Tree.
Hmm.
Dollar Tree. I love a Dollar Tree. I can go in there and get all the candles I need at Dollar Tree. Most of
Hmm.
them are white, but whatever. White's universal. You can do what you want with
Yes.
it.
And you can decorate the glass however you want to.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Now, I love using black candles. Black candles are my favorite to get rid of negative energy, to absorb negative energy, or to call forth a spirit.
Mhm.
Sorry. So I like to use. It depends on what I'm doing. I'll inside my candle. There it is. What I'll do, not this candle because this stuff here is heat sensitive,
Hmm.
but I'll take it and I'll put it into a pot of hot scalding water, about up to here.
Hmm.
It will melt the wax inside of it, right?
Mhm.
Then I will hold on to the wick and I will take chopsticks and I will put herbs inside of it. I'll put a small lodestone inside, some magnetic sand, whatever herbs I'm working with for whatever I'm doing. And I'll take those chopsticks and I'll push it down in there, holding the wick, keep the wick in the center. Then I'll let it cool. So not am I at that point, my herbs are throughout the entirety of the inside the candle, not just sitting on the top, flooding the
Hmm.
wick out, you know? I
I
love
do
doing that.
something similar. I have a, you guys asked me for some pictures of things. I sent you a picture of my altar. You should be able to see it in that picture. I have a wooden Phillips head screwdriver, and I'll poke holes as far down as I can go, and I'll just stuff those holes with the herbs and roots and powders and things, and to prepare mine. That's my prosperity altar. That's on top of my refrigerator.
Very nice.
Oh, I love that. Let me get the other
Now,
one up.
and it's because that's the highest spot in my house on top, because you want your thing to be up high so that your money grows, you
Hmm.
know.
Okay. There's the other one.
That is like a little spirit altar in my bedroom, and that's just like some of my little, like the raccoon is a totem for me. There's some gravel root, which is my plant familiar, carnelian. There's my spirit rattle, my Ouija board, some prayer books, some alcohol for feeding things. There's a statue of Mars because Mars is the chart ruler in my astrological chart.
Okay, I must not have that one saved.
Okay.
But
I saw you had the book there, Power of the Psalms. I have that same book. Great book. Great book.
Yeah, I love that book. Mine's annotated because I don't mind writing in some of my books. So I'll it'll say what this prayer is good for, but then you find other uses. So I'd love to just sort of write in it and say, oh, I use this for such and such, and then in the inside cover I try to make a bibliography. I don't know if that's the right word. An appendix.
Yeah. Yeah.
table of
This
contents.
yeah, table of contents just to
Yeah.
help me find it really quickly. So yeah.
Yeah. I run out of highlighters really quick because I'm big on
Mhm.
highlighting. I'm a
Mhm.
highlighter freak. Every book that I read, if I'm going to read a book, if I'm going to get a book, I'm going to read it from front to back.
Mhm.
If the intro is too boring, I got to pass that shit up. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I got to get through that. But I highlight the hell out of stuff. I've let my friends borrow books, and they're like, "Dude, this book is highlighted from hell and back." Like, but thank you for doing it anyway.
Yeah,
I borrowed,
I often buy two copies, one to just keep in good condition and another to write in.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
borrowed some of Ken's books, and I can tell you they are very highlighted.
The ones you borrowed are highlighted.
Yeah, there's a couple in there.
Hey, that's some good highlighting I did though.
Yeah, you did great.
Um, Speaking of Psalms, do you have a favorite Psalm, Carolina, that you prefer to use, like an all-purpose Psalm?
Psalm 23,
Psalm
the Lord
23.
is my shepherd. Yeah, and I even designed a mojo bag around that psalm. There's an item in it for each verse in the psalm. And no, I'm not going to give you the recipe.
Well, darn.
And it's sort of an all-purpose mojo bag, and it's just like Psalm 23 is what I use in when I don't know what else to use because it encompasses all needs.
Yeah,
And
makes sense.
here's a secret about that psalm too, for those of you who don't know, is or any Bible verse, you can change up the words to suit your needs. So where it says, "The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want," there's a blank space behind that in your mind. You could say, "The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want for prosperity. The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want for good health." So you can
Oh,
fill in whatever you want behind that. And like I said, you can change up words here and there in a verse to suit your needs.
So I've
nice.
heard you mention Mojo bags. I've heard Ken mention them. I've read a little bit about them, but can you explain a little bit more what they are and how to use them?
A mojo bag is usually a small bag full, not full, but it contains items that vibrate. I know a lot of people in hoodoo don't like that word. I love the word vibrate at a specific frequency of your need. Um, it's usually small and innocuous because back in the day when the slaves were brought here, they weren't allowed to have their sacred items, and so they were often small because being found with one, you could get killed, and so you place things in the bag that vibrate at the frequency of your needs. So if you're wanting love, you would put things in there that are traditionally associated with love. If you want money, what have you. Now the difference between a Wiccans, I'm not picking on Wiccans, and people from other magical traditions have sort of co-opted the mojo bag without a full understanding of it. For example, if I see one more child uh, showing their mojo bag, you don't let people see it. You
Right,
know, you
right.
don't show it. You don't let people
That's
touch
right.
it.
No, and you sure as hell don't open it up and let them look in
You
it.
don't right. You don't do that. It's the other thing. The important thing to remember is that unlike a talisman bag or a medicine bag in other traditions, a mojo bag is considered to be a living thing. You got to
You
feed
gotta
it.
feed it.
And if you don't feed it, it's gonna die,
You got
and
to
it's
feed
not
it.
gonna work for you.
Hmm.
I do want to point out one thing about mojo bags too is I've had different practitioners work different ways. Some practitioners have the same recipe for all their bags. Someone emails them up, they want a love mojo. So they'll go, okay, well we'll put some Queen Elizabeth root and some rose petals and different and boom, that's your bag. Other workers go with their intuition. And me, I use a technique called what I call dreaming the root, and this is something that was introduced to me probably about 6, 7 years ago, where on that altar I showed you, there was my plant familiar, Joe Pye, which is gravel root. I found, people are familiar with the idea of having an animal totem. Like it's always a wolf or a raven, it seems like, but
Yeah.
there's turtle and elephant and
Yeah.
rabbit and everything.
Nobody wants earthworm or a beetle.
Right, and somebody has to. But just like you have an animal totem, you have a plant totem spirit too. And I found mine through sort of a process with like the White Room and everything. And my totem through dream work. And I can tell you the story about it. I dreamt that I was standing backstage at a production of all things the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And they were practicing a scene, and in the dream, I walked out on the stage. I walked up to the guy who was playing Rocky, and I grabbed him by his junk and I said, "This is mine." And he said, "Well, if it's yours, take it then." And then so when I woke up, I had to like interpret this, and I got to thinking, okay, Rocky, another word for Rocky is gravel. And then I grabbed him by his junk or his root chakra, and you put that together and you get gravel root. And I said, "Oh, I met the spirit of gravel root." And I call him Joe because another word for gravel root is Joe Pie weed. And so what I do is before I retired, when someone would come to me for, say, a mojo bag, I would have Joe introduce me to a plant spirit that would help this person, and it would come to me in a dream, and I would have to interpret that dream to get that person's spirit. So a quick example is someone came to me for a love mojo. It was a man, and I asked Joe to help me find a plant spirit that would help Joe find love. And so in the dream, I'm going into a bookstore, which is a comic book store. And I walk around and I look, but I decide not to buy anything. And as I walk out, the cashier comes up to me and hands me a comic book and says, "Excuse me, this is yours." And I said, "No, I didn't drop it or anything. I'm not really interested in buying it." He goes, "No, this is yours. This is what you come for. There's no charge for it. Take it." I said, "Okay." So I took it. And so in my waking moment, okay, I had to like interpret this dream. So I got to thinking, it's sort of a word association. So comic books are usually about good versus evil. There's conflict. There's usually violence. And then it hit me, violence. That sounds like violets. And then what do we call the pages of a book? Leaves. So you put that together and you get violet leaves. So if you look it up in some of those books, violet leaves is an herb that is used to draw love. You usually stick it in your shoe for 7 days to lead you to love. So that's how I would start the mojo bag for the person. So I would start with violet leaves, and I would just sort of go from there and then, mail it off to the person. And I forgot to mention that there are certain tribes in South America that believe that you cannot work with a plant spirit unless that plant comes to you and teaches you how to use it. And so that's what happens to me when I work with or even for a candle spell. I hurt my back one time and I couldn't walk. I was hobbling around. I couldn't stand up straight. And I asked Joe to help me find a spirit. And in the dream, I'm not going to go through the whole dream, but basically I was seeing through the eyes of the spirit. It looked at its watch and it said, "Yep, let's go." And then through a process of, I figured out that spirit was thyme, Thyme, not time, right? Yeah. And I looked it up. I did a little bit because I always like to see, okay, I dreamed this. This is what the spirit that came to me. What does authors and what is the traditional uses of this plant? And a lot of time it does line up. Maybe it's my subconscious pulling that. Maybe it's the spirit, who knows? But anyway, I used the thyme in a candle spell. I basically had a candle and a thing, and I surrounded it with a circle of thyme, and I burnt the candle and I prayed and I asked the spirit of thyme to heal me. And probably within 24 hours, I was standing up straight. I still had a little bit of pain, but probably by the end of a week, I was my normal self.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. And I have a journal. Every time someone came to me for a candle spell or something, I keep a journal. Every candle I ever burn for another person, I wrote an entry in my journal, what candle I used, what herbs I used, what the signs were when it was laid. And I have so many stories of like spirits that came to me in dreams and how I used it for that person and what the outcome was if that person got back to me, because they don't always do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think that's so important in your magical practice is once you do the spell, you got to figure out how it worked and what you did. And so that way you can grow in your magical practice, because then you can refer back to that later. Especially I tweak pretty much every spell that I do. If I find something, especially with candle stuff, or like kitchen witchery, I don't ever follow a recipe. I like to tweak it. And if you don't write it down, you're never going to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I'll follow some recipes depending on the magic, depending on what I need, depending on what I'm doing. But sometimes, especially if I got to curse somebody, I'll just come in here and get angry and yell at a demon and say, "Look, I need your help. This is what we got to do. Let's handle some business." And we get it done.
There you go.
whatever. But
That's all it takes.
that's all it takes. Oh, John the Conqueror root. Now, that's one of my favorites. I love using John the Conqueror root. What I like to do is I like to combine John the Conqueror root with bay leaf in a sachet. I've got a bay leaf tree. When I planted it, it was that small. And 3 years, I don't know, they must grow really quick. That thing is taller than I am, and I'm 6'1". So, yeah, for protection and banishment, I love to use John the Conqueror and bay leaf, and I will feed them. I will usually I'll feed them Van oil. Van's my go-to. So I know that you have extensive experience using John the Conqueror root for me, not just for protection and banishment, but also to empower what I'm doing, to give it that extra punch. Could you give an example of how you've used it more recently, I guess?
I've used it a lot in money spells. I had a very large piece of High John root, and one thing I used to do with it was I would take a knife sometimes and just sort of scrape some of the shavings to get sort of a dust and add it to any other spell to give it more power. Back home, I used to use kudzu, but that don't grow here. We call it kudji, they call it kudzu in other places.
We got it in Florida, believe me.
You know, it's just so invasive. So
Yes.
you can add dried kudzu to a spell for more power. But again, 2 years ago when I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, again, they just to tell y'all how serious it was, they thought I could have a heart attack or a stroke at any minute. That's how bad it was, which is, why part of the reason I retired. So I used High John root to give me willpower to not eat and to exercise, because I used to have jobs. All the jobs I used to have were very physical. I was a buyer for Walgreens at one point. I was a person walking around all day, counting things, ordering things. I was on my feet all day. Then I got a job working in the office, and the lady who was the boss, she was a big girl. She made good money. She would buy us lunch all the time. So I was eating McDonald's and Jack in the Box every day. And slowly, over 8 years, I gained all this weight. And it happened so slow, I didn't notice it, to be honest with you, if that sounds right. And it got to a point where I was trying to walk for exercise, and I could not walk 3,000 steps a day. That was a struggle for me because I was so sedentary. And so I used High John to give me physical strength and willpower. And now I easily do 15 to 20,000 steps a day,
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That John the Conqueror root, some of my favorite stuff. Okay, so for me, John the Conqueror root, bay leaf, and Van oil. Baby, I can do it all with them three.
I keep a big.
Go ahead.
Oh, I keep a big piece of High John on my altar to empower spells too, because I feel like it's the physical representation of the spirit. In much the same way, some people keep a statue of a deity on their altar. I have like I said, I did send y'all that picture. Ken may have seen it, but like I have all kinds of crystals on my altar. I have a statue of Jesus. I have some dried herbs, roots on my altar, in place of, say, like a statue for that energy. And I like you don't see crystals a lot in hoodoo, but I like crystals because I feel like they are amplifiers of our thoughts. And again, our thoughts are the building blocks of the universe. So whenever I'm doing a spell at the altar, these crystals just sort of magnify and amplify that thought and make my spells more powerful. That's a great tip too for those of you who cast spells. I always like to put a circle of salt around my candle to protect it from negative energy, and I put a little quartz crystal beside it to boost its power.
I love that.
Yep.
I'm a big crystal girl. I have tons. I just got this really cool cup. It's made out of pink calcite.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
My favorite crystal to work with is quartz, clear quartz. I use smoky quartz sometimes when I'm working with the dead, but that's for another show, I guess. But I love clear quartz because I can put whatever intention into it that I want, whatever prayer into it I want, whatever invocation, evocation into what I want, any command, depending on, what I'm doing, into it that I want, and use that quartz crystal to make things happen. And things do
Um,
happen.
Yeah. Earlier, I talked about how everyone has, or not everyone, but most people have a plant familiar and an animal familiar. And another overlooked thing is our mineral, because that's your three kingdoms right there: plant, animal, and mineral. And then you put something of yourself, and then boom, there's your medicine bag. Mine, I used to think my mineral familiar was amethyst, but then I got to really study my own birth chart in depth, and I came across carnelian. I mentioned earlier that Mars is the chart ruler in my chart, and then I was reading something about stones, and I saw that carnelian is associated with both Mars as well as Virgo, and I am a Virgo, and without even knowing it, this ring right here. I got this ring off of eBay probably about 20 years ago, and I got it because I'm trying to show you kind of how big it is. I love dark shadows, and I wanted a ring like Barnabas, and of course I got these fat fingers. But without even knowing it, I had been wearing carnelian for 20 something years, not knowing that it vibrated so well with me. And then I bought this piece of carnelian to match it, and I keep it on my altar. And I have noticed a huge difference in it amplifying my magic and my spells. A lot of times I'll just scratch this in my hand, and state what I want to happen, and boom, it's working for me.
Yeah, I also love labradorite. Labradorite is really good, especially if I have to study or, I got to work with my mind a lot. I will use labradorite, or I will wear a labradorite necklace, or I will just fumble around with it in my hands,
I
whatever.
like fluorite.
Yeah,
for
fluorite.
that. Yeah.
My stone technically isn't a stone. It's a jet, which is calcified wood, and it is some of the most powerful stuff I've ever felt. And it just absorbs everything. You never need to cleanse it. You never need to charge it. It just sucks everything up like a vacuum. And it's so good for any sort of negative energy, any anxiety, any tiredness, any pain, whatever you want. It just sucks it right in there. And it's deceptively lightweight. So I keep it in my pocket all the time and never have to worry about it. And I love it.
Yeah.
So iron. I am a big believer in using iron railroad spikes. I use railroad spikes. I have railroad spikes around my entire property, all four corners of my property. I have anointed them. I have prayed over them. I have put them in the ground. I put the coin on top, covered them up, the whole thing. Amazing difference. It's like a shield barrier and a witch's bottle at the entrance to my property.
Yeah. Do you know, there's a root worker in Seattle. I don't know if Miss B's heard of her. Have you heard her name's Auntie Cindy Toto? She makes some beautiful pieces with railroad spikes. She makes them into almost like talismans and things. I did a healing retreat at the Captain Whitby Inn with her about 4 or 5 years ago, and she had some very beautiful pieces that she made.
That's really cool. Yeah, and there's so many ways to incorporate it into like more of an artsy thing, so it's not just a railroad spike in the ground.
Right, and the spirits love pretty.
Yeah,
they love pretty things. They really do. A lot of these spirits are more receptive to things that are pretty.
There's a glass blower that makes these beautiful glass witch balls, and they're about yay big, and they have all the connections inside it, and they're colorful, and the outside is clear. And I have one of those, and I love it.
And those witch balls are they can be very beautiful, very elaborate, very colorful, and very expensive.
Yeah,
believe me, I priced them. I would love to have, especially the big oaks I have out front here. I would love to have some of those, like, I don't know, 30, 40 of those witch bottles just hanging in that tree. Oh, that would be amazing.
We can get you some. We'll work it out.
All right, let's work it out.
Perfect. All right, we got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to open up the comments. If you have any questions for myself, Ken, or most importantly, Caroline and Dean, definitely ask right now. And I'd just like to officially thank you so much for being on the show. We've really enjoyed having you.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, we'll have to get you on here more. There's so much knowledge that you can pass on.
Oh, I'd be happy to come back sometime.
All right. Well, we're going to hold you to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we would really like to have you come back on. I've really enjoyed this podcast. This has been a very relaxing podcast to me tonight. So, yeah.
Mhm. I almost forgot that we were doing the podcast. I noticed I had a couple comments stacked up, and I was like, "Oh no!" Just feels like we're chatting between friends, and I'm loving it. All right. Well, it looks like we are good to go. So, Ken, would you like to tell everybody good night?
Yeah, before we do that, Carolina, do you have any last words for anyone who's looking to get into hoodoo, tradition, conjure magic, anything like that before we go?
I recently did a podcast, and the guy asked me, "What books do you recommend?" And I said no. I wanted to give everybody the same advice I was given many, many years ago: is whatever it is you're interested in, whether it's hoodoo, voodoo, witchcraft. Uh, Read everything you can get your hands on about that subject, and in your reading and studying, you will develop discernment. And through that discernment, the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, will guide you towards what is truth. But the thing is, truth is relevant to everybody. So live your own spiritual path. Don't try to be the next Carolina Dean. Don't try to be a second rate version of someone else. Be a first rate version of yourself. And two more things: Black Lives Matter and stop the Asian hate. If I have to turn this planet around, I will.
All
Absolutely.
right.
I love
All
it.
right. Well,
Perfect.
thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining the Wizards Table. We really appreciate our viewers. We thank you guys so much. And thank you, RU Media, for having us. We appreciate it. We love all of you guys. Carolina, thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Speed, thank you. And
Absolutely. And
everybody, go ahead, girl.
one last time, this is the book. It's on Amazon, so you can get it. They have it on Kindle. It's only $10, and I'm sure it'll be a great read. I'm gonna go get it right now. And I've linked his Patreon right there, and then he also has his own website, carolinaconjure.com, and then he has that YouTube channel, Carolina Dean. So go look him up everywhere. Get into it.
Thank you, guys. Have a blessed weekend.
Bye.